Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World Weekly Lecture. I'm your host Becca, and today I'll be talking with JB Maree, who is going to talk about his work as an entrepreneur, investor and business coach. And today we'll be focusing on creating a future that inspires you. So welcome, JB.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, thanks so much. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me. I'm really interested to learn more about what you do. So I'm going to start by just asking you a little bit about yourself. So can you tell me where you're from and where you're calling in from today?
Yeah, sure. So I'm calling in from Kalk Bay, Cape Town, South Africa. And we're just having a little chat, and it's a wonderful little fishing village on the Indian Ocean. And so I look out to the sea, which is about 150 meters that way. And if I walk up on the hill, about 20 kilometers that way is the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a wonderful little bay called the False Bay. We have a house here. So I have a daughter and a son and a wife. It's always hard to sort of classify oneself, you know. So I'm a business coach in that I work with businesses and entrepreneurs. I'm an investor in some businesses, you know, and we're all learning, you know, along this journey. It's just such an amazing journey. So yeah, I mean, a little bit more about maybe what I do. And you know, there's always a story and a backstory. I work with often technical people, CEOs, young CEOs, you know, often very smart. They've built something of value. They might have a few teams. They might work by themselves. You know, they have their own business context. And often they get to a point where, you know, they're challenged or there are obstacles in the business. And really people want to talk to me because one of my experience, but they really want a fresh perspective. They want a guide. They want a sounding board. And that's the role that I play. So I'm able to listen well and really understand someone's story or narrative as it unfolds and work with them to get rid of the things that they need to get rid of, address the obstacles and kind of get to the new level, whatever that level might be. So sort of hence the talk saying, you know, we're always kind of working towards a future that we see for ourselves, a narrative. And it's really, really important that one connects to that. And I mean, as an example, I was coaching somebody who was a reluctant CEO, you know, and there might be, you know, some of those in the community. And it was very interesting, you know, just why she was reluctant. And over a period of time, we turned her from reluctance into her actually buying out the company from her private investors, you know.
Wow.
You know, it was a lovely story, but that was an obstacle, you know. She spent time presenting all her new ideas to me, why to leave the company, and they weren't great at all. So eventually we turned it around and said, well, you know, let's deal with the reluctance. Let's deal with the company you're in. You know, it's such a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So would you mind telling me a little bit about, I guess, how you got into business coaching, or where did your journey begin within this kind of sector?
Yeah. So I suppose my experience has been, you know, I've got degrees in economics, and I went to a big consulting company, Accenture, and, you know, we built some software, and that was my path. You know, it was, and I never felt comfortable. You know, it wasn't a tribe I enjoyed. I learned a lot. And so we ended up actually, Accenture gave us an opportunity to take the software we were building and create a software company. And so we did that. And as part of that, I learned so much about creating a new company, creating a new venture, and we grew that. and we actually took it to an IPO, to a listing, and my role was sales and marketing and anything that was sort of client facing or investor facing. And so I've been invited into other companies to grow them. And as part of that, what ended up happening is, as we acquired companies, my role was to really guide them and support them and work with them. And then I set up an advisory company, and we got a lot of work from Microsoft. And they were spending a lot of money in South Africa developing what they call ISVs, software companies. And so I ended up coaching and working with and designing a program to accelerate their growth. And as part of that, that became my ecosystem. That became a context. Those were my first clients. And then I was really able to just become a coach. I'm involved in a software company. I think software is just such an amazing context. So that's been, through acquisitions, through meeting people, through getting to know companies, word of mouth. People have said, well, why don't you chat to JB? Why don't, and then, people reach out and chat to me, and often they don't know, they're like, well, I don't even know what I should be saying or asking. And, what is this coaching stuff? And, how's it even going to help me? And so, I think there's a lot on coaching, but, as a journey for somebody to reach out to a coach and say, how could they help me? I think that's an interesting topic, just to talk about.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that people have that kind of the soundboard to be able to bounce their thoughts and ideas off. And it's sometimes quite difficult, especially as an entrepreneur, to kind of have those people around you to be able to ask questions or to be able to kind of give you feedback. So I imagine coming to you to speak is really beneficial for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think, a sounding board is, first of all, you get to pitch your business to me. You get to talk about obstacles. You get to, one of the first things that I do with people is do what I call a timeline exercise. What has got you to this point over time? And when we do that, what's interesting is that often very important things surface. And what I'm able to do is take that and then turn it into themes or threads or topics, and then we explore those. And often those become sort of the raw material for the work that I do within those customers. And just being able to be listened to, being able to be understood, and then being able to pose a challenge or an obstacle or even a concern, and taking the time to discuss it and look at it, it's incredibly valuable, And then my role is to sort of look at the mindset. So if it was a reluctant CEO, or, if somebody says, look, I just don't know how to sell anymore. I feel like it was easy in the beginning, and now, I don't know what I'm doing. And you can see they've just got stuck. So just releasing that energy, understanding the mindset, talking and creating a sense of confidence. So often it's about confidence, people's confidence within their own businesses, and as we say, excited about the journey. Excited that whatever they're planning to do can be achieved. There's nothing worse than not being able to achieve something. It's like just, people battle. So a sounding board is, I think it's so valuable. It's quite lonely out there, and we all deal with our aloneness. And so having a sounding board, and an independent sounding board, and somebody who's perhaps got experience, and who, my superpowers, even though I'm talking, is really listening at various levels. and being able to, turn that into some form of action. It's very useful to people.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So as you probably know, most of our community are digital nomads, remote workers. Have you worked with many entrepreneurs who are location independent?
Yeah, it was interesting, I'm an entrepreneur, and the reason that you become an entrepreneur is because you love freedom. Freedom of money, freedom of time, freedom of purpose, and who you work with, and so travel is part of that freedom for me. I have a son who's a professional surfer. He's very young, but he's probably been to 24 countries multiple times, and I've had the joy of traveling with him. And in one of those, I was actually chatting to someone in Bali, and they'd come out of a big tech company, and we started to chat, and then we met each day at one of the sort of health shops and or health cafes. And he just said, "Gee, you should be, you should be working with nomads. It's so nice to be able to chat to you, and it's so nice to be able to access your experience and feel connected to a community." So that was the sort of first idea of thinking about and working with nomads. So I think, when I think about nomads, I think that maybe, and there's kind of two categories: people who create a very powerful nomadic context for their life, which is travel, the place, and they might just have a job. So it might be a remote job versus an entrepreneur who's nomadic or has a nomadic lifestyle. And those are really very different contexts that you would coach into. So I haven't myself been a nomad, but the businesses that I've been in have really, I've been fortunate to travel a lot, so sometimes I've lived in, I was 3 weeks in London, and back for a week in in Cape Town. I mean, that was pretty relentless. And then I've traveled the world, but not living there. So I am inspired, and I want to be inspired by your community, and I definitely am looking forward to working as a nomad. That is a challenge for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think there's a lot of crossovers with kind of working like location independently as a remote worker, and working with a location like as a base. But I do think that sometimes as a digital nomad, because you're always potentially moving around, or you're only living in one place for say a month or two, can be difficult to build that network, to have the support both in your personal life but also within business. So I think having a business coach is a good way for people to kind of have that support that perhaps they may not have if they're always moving around. And I think particularly for like remote workers, to be able to have a business coach that they can work with online would be fantastic. Is that something that you've done much of, like, say, for example, over Zoom and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my work has certainly shifted towards remote work. So, but even, as a software, having owned software companies, we've been remote sort of oriented for a long time. Even just saying, our employees don't need to be, at the office, or our employees can go and work. I had an employee who is, their parents lived in Kenya, and it was like, you don't have to take leave to go there. Just go and work from there.
That's cool.
so so we've certainly had that orientation. But, I really take my hat off to the nomadic lifestyle and to nomads. I mean, it is relentless. And I think, the nomad world or digital nomad world, building a community, I think you want to be part of a community. I mean, I think it's wonderful to be able to dial in and create one and be part of something and feel connected, being able to experience people where you are and the context of travel, and often and then also have a community, a like-minded community, where you can access complementary skills, where you can speak to people, or where you could get support and coaching. I think it's needed. I think it's and everywhere where I've gone, people who are nomads always welcome a conversation. I mean, they love meeting people, they welcome a conversation, they're very open. You don't want to be a nomad and be closed. You don't want to be a nomad and not connect and not share your experience. And so I think it's really, what you're doing is fantastic. I think creating a community is essential. You want to feel part of something.
Yeah. Do you think that there are more challenges in terms of kind of business for people who are location independent, as opposed to someone who is in the same place?
Yeah, I think for a nomad, there are going to be, two levels of challenges and opportunities. One at a contextual level. And so what does it mean to be in that place? What does it mean to choose, somewhere where you can express yourself and, things and interests. And then the other is, well, what is your work? What is it? A skill? Is it a job? Do you have a business? I mean, last week I met an entrepreneur and he was visiting Cape Town. He and his partner, they get together once a year. They have a little software company in the HR space. And, what was very clear to me is that it was the right scale of business. It was the right sort of focus in terms of market. They'd crafted a fantastic product and service. And so that was in balance with the nomadic lifestyle. If you had the sort of type of business that I had, it's too demanding. You almost want to be in one place. You want to have a stable base. You want to have a couple of key employees around you. So I think nomads, have choices in terms of, the size of company, if they're entrepreneurs, the nature of the product. And then they're balancing what I call balances. It's not just work-life balance. It's a few balances. It's relationship, it's community, it's the skill, it's the, enjoying the place, and it's work. And it's, the things that you love doing. So it's not just balance, it's balances. And that's dynamic. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think, it probably depends a lot on what you are doing. And I guess if you find that community, I found that a lot of co-working spaces are great places to meet like-minded people who are location independent. And it's been really great chatting with them if you're kind of stuck with something. Or it's one thing that I think is fantastic about being a digital nomad is having access through, say, co-working spaces to like a global network. You meet all kinds of people with different backgrounds, different thoughts, opinions, and I found that really fantastic for bouncing ideas off of, because you get such an interesting and unique viewpoint that perhaps you wouldn't get if you're in the same location.
Yeah, I think, we had an office and pre-COVID, and it didn't take long for us to shut the office down. we immediately moved into sort of a co-working space. And then we did a lot of research on the co-working spaces in Cape Town, and found a space that was absolutely amazing in terms of facilities, but also seemed to have the right kind of people that we wanted to bump into and meet and connect with.
That's great.
So, yeah, I think it's great if it's not just about the space, you know, it's about the people and the type of people, and that just adds so much, you know, those conversations, whether it's over lunch or whether it's over, you know, drinks or during work, or even just overhearing people. You know, it's fantastic to connect to the right people.
Yeah, for sure. We've started getting in a few questions from the audience.
Yeah, great.
The first one is, do you find that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with the same issues?
There are many issues and obstacles that are very similar. And so as you go through the levels, you know, the themes are very similar, but the contexts are different. So there might be some very specific issues as it relates to, let's say, you know, having chosen a wrong employee, you know, or scaling a team, or but yeah, there are a lot of similarities in the businesses. I think, you know, the biggest thing that I have discovered is people's mindsets. Really be able to explore their mindset at the level that they're at in terms of business, and looking at those combinations. You know, if it's a fear, or it's a fear of growth, or if it's you know, people get unsure and stuck, and they lose a sense of confidence. And when I say, well, that just means you're ready to go to the next level, this is fantastic, they're like, what do you mean? You know, I mean, I'm feeling terrible. I said, that's fine. Everyone I meet, they don't phone me because they're happy. They don't phone me because they feel stuck, you know, and they feel challenged, and that's just so much part of life. And then when people realize, you know what, this isn't a unique my issue, this isn't a unique, they're able to tackle it sort of independently and go, oh really, oh okay, fantastic, I'm so glad other people have these issues. It's not just me and my thinking, and oh my goodness, you know, my aloneness and poor me. You know, we get over that quite quickly.
Yeah. The next question is, what exactly does a business coach aim to achieve? How can you determine if a coach is working for you?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's all about the entrepreneur. So it's not about the coach. So if the coach comes in, you know, all guns blazing, telling you exactly what he's going to do, you're probably with the wrong person. It really is a process of identifying where the entrepreneur is at, and providing insight and perspective. And those come through questions, those come through sort of work sessions, and from that process, you know, people know where the value lies immediately. They'll say, oh my goodness, you know, this is just fantastic. You know, I really feel like I'm in good hands. I feel like I've gained clarity. You know, I like the perspective. You know, that one thing that you've mentioned, or, you know, has been very, very useful. It's kind of been the piece of the puzzle that I've been missing. Yeah, so I think it is important to find someone that there's a fit. It must be a good fit. And it's not about the coach. It's all about the entrepreneur. And that'll come through in the way that the sessions are held. And then the progress, you know, there are clear goals. There's clear progress. you know, if I'm working with somebody, I'll have, let's say, an introductory conversation. It'll be an hour. And out of that hour, it becomes very clear what they're wanting. And so you articulate it, in 2 or 3 ways. And they said, that's exactly what I want to do, Okay, so it does take time to work out whether that's the core issue or not. It does take time to work out what they mean. Let me just switch my my computer on. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So it takes a little time to make sure that you are dealing with the things that need to be dealt with, and that there's a sense of clear progress. And it's usually quite obvious.
Do you think there's like a minimum amount of time that you should spend with a business coach? Like you said, if you have like an introductory chat for an hour, you can kind of see where the help is kind of needed. If someone then wanted to continue, how does it vary depending on the person, or do you think it's good to have a certain amount of sessions or meetings?
Yeah, it does vary. I mean, being in this community, I do offer and spend time with people who have businesses, and I don't charge them. But so if somebody who had quite a big pottery business, funnily enough, it was pre-COVID, they came and said, "Look, please, can I chat to you?" And it didn't take long to realize that everything she needed to. She had premises, she had all sorts of things. And I said, well, why? Why are you doing this? Really, let's get down to the core themes. What is it that you enjoy? And within the hour, we'd made a decision to shut her business down in terms of all the premises, all the costs. When she freaked out about, oh, what about the people? And I said, no, what you'll find is that the way that you deal with this issue is going to determine their opportunities. So let's do it in the right sort of way. What opportunities could we give them? And so we spent a couple of hours dealing with that. And she made a very good decision, and she shifted her business, and that's a small business, back home. She focused on training, education, and that was just 2 or 3 hours. And some businesses, they will require a lot of input. It's quite technical. Sometimes I even get involved in people's businesses. They'll put me on a retainer. I'll run some meetings. I'll take on a temporary role within the business. I almost can't help myself getting into the middle of the business. For me, that's just where the energy is. And we'll run a meeting, and we'll have this debate. How do you say that? You can't just say that. Surely you can't just ask for that. So, well, how are you ever going to get it if you don't ask for it? It's the way you ask for it. It's the way you open up. It's the way you look at partnerships. And then we'll talk about if it's a partnership. So it varies from business to business. It could be just a once-off. It could be. It depends on the nature and the size of the business. If it's a bigger business, they tend to demand more time. And then if it's a sort of a work session, so we've got an amazing cable car company in Cape Town, and into Cape Town, you'll have come up the cableway, and they phoned me and they wanted me to run just a 2-day strategy session, and out of that, we discovered, just some real gems that they hadn't thought of. So that was a wonderful sort of work session. It wasn't really coaching; it was strategy work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does vary.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The business owner will have a sense of it. The business owner will say, "Okay, this is the kind of budget. This is how I think it's going to work for me. It can't be too often, because then, I'm busy, but this is the cadence. So we find a cadence. Yeah.
We're starting to come towards the end of the session, but I just have a few more questions for you. This one's, I guess, a bit more about yourself. What are your biggest rewards from being a business coach?
Meeting amazing people.
Yeah.
And learning from them. You know, I always say it's such a two-way process. You know, people that you find and bump into often bring you things that are just such a delight to work on. You know, whether it's, you know, rethinking the strategy, you know, even the cable car. I mean, it was just so amazing to look at the inner workings of it, to understand what was going on. Yeah, so learning from people, you know, and meeting amazing people, and then being in the businesses. The businesses are often fun. They're doing amazing things. You know, they're doing crazy things sometimes. So, you know, that's the joy of being a business coach.
Yeah, I imagine it's quite inspiring seeing the
Yeah.
ideas that people are coming up with and kind of rewarding, helping them to develop them.
Yeah, and it's definitely that sort of the energy between people, you know, when you can just connect, you know, build relationships and enjoy what people are doing and relate to that. It's so much fun. You know, it is a lot of fun. And then, you know, the celebrations or joint celebrations of kind of achieving milestones, or, you know, doing the thing that they thought maybe was a bit impossible, and suddenly, you know, it starts to happen and starts to fall in place. It's fantastic to see, you know, people enjoying themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one last question. I ask it to everyone that we interview. What is one piece of advice that you would give to, I guess, digital nomad entrepreneurs or people that are kind of looking to make that jump into, I don't know, taking themselves to the next level?
I suppose it goes back to the title. It really takes, it's a wonderful, you know, journey to be inspired and sort of be the main character of your own life. So whether you love family, whether you love business, whether you love, you know, surfing, like my son, you know, you just, you know, get inspired and build out your own story, find people who you connect with, that you really enjoy, that make a difference, you know, be it friends that you can contribute to, and keep working, you know, at that next level. And it's like new worlds open up at every single level, you know, whether it's a new place, whether it's a new skill or capability, whether it's a renewed sense of confidence. And that's, you know, that's the journey. And so the nomad layer is really bringing the inspiration of place and discovery and connecting, and that sort of energy of new places. And that's, I mean, such a wonderful context, you know. So
yeah,
that would be my advice, you know, and listen to yourself. You know, there's so much stuff that's out of you. You know, my daughter's an entrepreneur, and she's got a sort of a clothing brand, and she doesn't listen to me. It's fantastic. You know, it's really great. I mean, when she's got a pricing issue, she's going to come to me for sure, and we're going to work through the night, and we're going to solve it. But I'm so glad when she says, "Dad, I don't want your input." She's listening to herself and discovering what she wants. You know, so
yeah, that's great.
That would be my advice.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, JB, for speaking with me. If anyone wants to find out more about your work or to get in contact, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
I think we could add my email address. So,
Okay.
yeah, jb.maree@me.com. Or we can probably post it onto the link.
Yeah.
So we can do that through you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Join us again next week. We'll be speaking with Orest Zub, who is a Ukrainian digital nomad who we interviewed back in February. He will be joining us, giving us an update of what life has been like whilst living in Ukraine as a digital nomad. So thank you again, everyone, for joining, and thanks, JB.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.